I've also been consulting around the country since about 2012, helping people with educational technology. I'm an author. Tom Driscoll and I wrote a book called Becoming Active Citizens, for which we won a National Book Award in 2023. I also am the secretary of the Illinois Digital Educators Alliance, which is the ISTE affiliate in the state. If you have any questions or you want to unmute during the session, please feel free to do that. My goal is to give you the session you need, not the session that we prepared, right? So if we need to move in a different direction, that's great. I would love to have your feedback and help us drive where that change goes. All right, let's see. All right, with the number of people we have here, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Here's a rough overview of what we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about the Google strategy for writing prompts, talk about some of the strategies you can use for teens and some of the newer features that are coming in with Gemini right now. We're going to dive in and let you try those things, because ultimately when you leave here today, I hope you will have had hands-on time with all the key features that we're talking about. And then we're going to go into Notebook LM. At the end, we'll look at Gemini for Google Workspace. As like a final thing. That'll be a quick overview, largely because a lot of people don't have access to it and I can't give you a hands-on experience. But anytime we're going through here, if you want me to pause, repeat something, drop it into the chat. I know that between Tom and Catherine, we'll probably have somebody keeping an eye on the chat and let me know what's going on. All right. So let's go ahead and start with an overview of Google AI tools in education. All right, so just to give you an idea of where they are, and because this has changed a little bit, the free tools that are always available, if you're using Google AI tools, generative AI tools like Gemini and Notebook LM will always be free to you. However, if you have a paid version of Gemini for Workspace, you get additional upgraded features, right? If you have a paid Google account, all of these will be accessible for teens as well, but we'll get into that a little bit more. When you upgrade, you have some advantages. Gemini Advanced has a certain few advantages in the way that you can structure it, the way that you can build materials in it. And Notebook LM Plus is going to give you more access to uploading more materials. It just broadens the scope. And then also, once you get, if you have a paid version to Gemini, which not many schools have that just yet, you have Gemini integration within all of the Google Workspace. For instance, if you haven't seen it, I'll try and show you today. Google Classroom is starting to have features a little bit like Magic School, Alana AI, and those educational tools that we've seen, Magic School, that can do education-related tasks for you. So we'll take a look at that in just a little bit. All right, so it looks like some of you have looked at the app, but not as many of you had a chance to dive in. So if you want to go to gemini.google.com or just Google Gemini, all right, and then sign in, that would help you. All right, you can type in any prompt. It works very much like other AI tools that you've seen, but there's some other features in it that are going to make it a little bit unique. Okay, so the next thing that's been new, and these are some things that have just recently been added. Okay, the app is free for all Google Workspace for Education accounts. So even if you don't upgrade to the Gemini tools, if you just have Google Workspace accounts, you will have access to this tool. All right. The cool thing for us to remember as educators is this. I want you to take a look at this second box right here, this area right here. Whoops. When you're using the Google Gemini app, people ask this question all the time. Your chats are not reviewed by human reviewers, and they're not otherwise used to improve AI models, right? As a core service in Google Workspace, that makes it FERPA compliant. It's not taking data from students. It's not taking the materials that they upload, training their app with it, or sharing them with anyone. It's private, and it's not going to be seen by other humans. The next thing is that as they keep working on Gemini, it's available in more languages. It's currently up to 40 languages for educators and anybody who's over 18 years old. But the trick here is that if you're using a regular Google account that has been paid for by a school, it's safe and FERPA compliant for students that are over 13 years old. It has not yet been extended to people who are younger. But if you want, we can talk about the way some great strategies I've seen educators using so that students who are younger can have a teacher act as a go-between to use that AI and model for them what AI is like so that they're prepared and socialized on the tool, okay? All right. So in terms of privacy, whenever we're talking about these things, one of the things I always had to do was go back to my school, to my technology folks, to the administrators, and prove to them that there was privacy and that these things were suitable for the use by students. All right. So if you look here, the free of use tools are Google Gemini, which is usable for people up over 13 years old. I want to make this really, really clear. Right now, Notebook LM is not available to students under 18. It's 18 plus. It's very popular. People like it. But as a teacher, we're going to be using it to show you how we might be able to use these tools and create materials. But as of now, it's not available for students under 18. If you get into the paid tools that give you Gemini Advanced, those tools are not going to be able to be used by students under 13 under 18 years old. They're still 18 plus. All right. The data protection that you have is that it is not going to be used to review or train models. So it meets FERPA requirements. Okay. And then if you want to look at terms of service, if you're doing the work, like the legwork to talk to your technology department, this is where the workspace education terms of services are, and you can dig and go through those. Okay. But Google also has a system to write prompts, and you've probably seen something that talks about writing effective prompts using AI. Google's system is a simplified version of some of the ones that you've seen, and we'll give you a chance to take a look at it, right? So in case you don't know, prompt engineering is basically how we get the program of AI to run. Right? Think of it like computer programming, but instead of using like a language like C++ or any of those others, we're using the English language as a programming language, right? And so the Google model, let me look at the chat. Okay, that seems to be taken care of. They use a system called parts, and the parts system works like this. So if you've ever seen prompt engineering models, we're going to look at the persona first. What is your role? I am a teacher, right? Like this is what I'm using, your context, your aim. What is it that you want? Who is going to receive the information? Who's the audience? So the recipients, the theme. This is where you put style, tone, make it friendly, make it useful. AI, large language models are really good at tone. So changing the tone, making it caring, make it supportive, try adding, and make the language very supportive when you're doing these things with students, and you'll watch the whole tone change, right? And then structure. Do you want it in the form of a table? Do you want it in the form of bullet points? Do you want it in the form of a document? Whatever you want to do. You can even add bullet points, emojis, things like that. It's also very good with code. All large language models are extremely good at both creating and evaluating code if you're doing programming. So that's the parts system. What I want you to do is this. This is an example template that you can use, right? I am a blank, state your aim of recipients, and describe the theme structure. So here's a model that I've got for you. I am a middle school history educator, design an engaging classroom activity for 8th grade students about creating a collaborative digital timeline. The activity should incorporate storytelling and technology. The time allotment is this many periods, right? And then drop it in. What I want you to do is try to go use this parts model for prompt engineering and give it a whirl. I'm going to give you, we don't have tons of time, but I want to give you 3 minutes to just go drop a prompt into Gemini using the parts model. All right. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn off my camera while you're doing this so you don't feel like we're having a George Orwellian experience, but I'll be here if you have any questions, and I'll set a timer for 3 minutes. Hey, Siri, set a timer for 3 minutes. Gershana, the slides are pinned to the top of our chat. So if you go to the top, you'll see that there's a pinned message, and you can grab those and copy them. They're already in there, and you should have access to all of it. Okay. If you find that that's not the case, let me know. All right. if you'd like, just to give people models, take the prompt that you've written, drop it into the chat for us to see what it is that you're creating, and give us a sense of how it's going. All right, there's our time. I see the example some people have dropped in there. So as a model goes, I think the importance is this. It isn't so much which model you use, it's the fact that you have structure. Kind of for the same reason that the 5-paragraph essay, where we structure it by tracing our hand and write it in there, we give people a place to start and we help them to consider the things that they're supposed to be adding, right? So as a mnemonic to help them remember, this is a pretty helpful way of going about it. It's also a little bit more simple than some of the models that I've actually seen. All right. So next, we're going to talk about how to help students study smarter with Gemini. So if you're using Gemini, because it's available for teams who are 13 and over, right? You can have it create materials for you. You can have Gemini give real-time feedback. To me, it's this. The most effective feature, the most effective strategy to get students to learn is actually the relationship the teacher has with the students. But the second one, very close to that, is timely, specific feedback, right? Meaningful feedback. So not like great job, that does nothing. You can say great job 1,000 times, it accomplishes nothing except maybe building the relationship. But if you say, great job, I love the way that you structured this by using X, Y, and Z. And I love the way you supported your thesis with facts throughout each paragraph. Like very specific things are going to help them. If you can have Gemini give feedback in a class period, whereas typically in a perfect world, a teacher has 1 minute and 15 seconds in a 15-minute period to give feedback. If you're perfect, and we're not. So if you go ahead and use Gemini to give feedback, imagine if you could increase the amount of feedback a kid is getting by 15 or 20 pieces of feedback per lesson, by 5 times per week, by 180 school days. You're talking about, if you were able to give 10 more pieces of meaningful feedback per class period, that's 1,800 pieces of feedback, right? So as we do this, consider that. How can you help to have structure for feedback that we can use with AI, right? All right, so some things that you should know. There's strict content policies that prevent under 18 users from seeing potentially inappropriate or harmful responses. The new Gemini features are going to make sure that any student whose license or whose account shows that they're under 18 years old, between 13 and 18, is going to be restricted from seeing materials that might be inappropriate. A little bit like the image searches when you're on a school account are going to limit the kind of things that they can see. The next thing that you should know is coming is that there's going to be more and more increasing materials to help onboard students that are approved by different family online safety institutes to help them prepare to use it. So in terms of socialization, if you want, I've put an example video. It's just one of many that is available on this topic, linked there, okay? And the other thing is that Google also has a double check response feature. So once you run a search, you can then go ahead and use the check response to make sure that it's a fact-based question to verify it. So if we go into Google and we were to ask for something like, give me a list list of the benefits of civic education in schools. You can go ahead and hit that. It's going to give you a search. And then after it does this and it gives you a list of everything that's there, right? You also have this option where it's going to say, give it a detailed research report that you can go ahead and do. If you do that, it will take the same prompt and it'll give you something deeper, something more thorough, right? It has research-based websites. So towards the issue of, are these valid sources, by using this tool, you're going to increase the amount, right? Here are research websites that you can use. There's also a way to create a report and also to analyze the results. Okay, you can click on starting the research then, and it will dig in and start actually pulling up the specific sources. So in terms of academic uses, this is way more effective, way more academic than what we originally saw in the early versions of LLMs, large language models. And then notice that it has these researching websites that you can use. So you've got some responsible use. It's got initial research focuses, key areas of exploration, and then it will continue to write about positive impacts, focus on critical skills, and give them a starting point to overview a topic. You can go ahead and take a look at that really quick. All right. But then when you're done actually using a search, there's a check feature that'll show up at the bottom that'll allow you to then go back. Let me close this out. Now that we've seen that. And then check the work that you've done to see if it's actually accurate. Okay. Hold on one second. All right. Hold on. My mouse froze up here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to kind of restart that. Okay, got it. All right. So going on, another thing that we can try is this. One feature that we have the ability to use is the ability to have Gemini take the place of a historical figure, a scientist, a politician, any way you want. So I want you to just for a second think of a historical figure that you'd like to ask questions of, right? Imagine that you wanted to do a discussion with Gerald Ford about what it was like to be an unelected president. Or imagine that you want to go back in time and talk to Susan B. Anthony about how she sees current events. You can go ahead and do that. So a really easy way to do that is to go in and ask Gemini to mimic the answers based upon that particular historical figure. So we're going to give you a chance to try that out. Go in and use this template. I would like to discuss the topic of blank. Please give me your answers using the voice and ideas of this person. Or I would like to discuss the topic of voting with Susan B. Anthony. Please give your answers using the voice and ideas of Susan B. Anthony when you answer. Give that a whirl. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to explore that, play around, see what you feel about the tone. Once you've done this, drop an example answer into the chat so that beyond just our experiences, we can gain from everybody else's experience. All right. I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes. Go ahead and dive in and give that a whirl. Hey, Siri, set a timer for 3 minutes. And again, I'm going to be here. Feel free to unmute and ask or drop it into the chat like before, but I don't want you to feel like you're being observed. No, Sarah, we're just taking 3 minutes of work time. So we're still here, but we're giving people a chance to try this out. All right, there's our time. Sarah, when you go in and drop in any kind of a prompt to Google Gemini, on the bottom after that prompt, it will prompt you to, would you like to use a deep research model if it's research based? It doesn't do it for all of them. It's kind of smart about when it selects to do that. But then you can click deep research and dive deeper in. It's going to give you a basic answer to start, and then afterwards it'll go deeper. Okay, great. All right, but I want to point out, I dropped into the chat. I know that Tom mentioned it a little bit earlier too. When you're using the deep research feature, it's actually using a different model. It's not a large language model. It's using a logic model rather than that large language model. And so the logic model is going to fact check itself, make sure that it's dependable, cross-reference to like valid sources rather than some others. You still need to check it because it's still being used with AI, but you're going to have a significantly higher return on your investment in terms of high quality research level feedback that you're getting. Okay. So it is a difference. We can talk more about logic models. New AI tools are coming out in the form of logic models all the time that work very differently. Instead of using probability to pick the next word, they're using probability and they're using their search and a logic system, kind of like a chain of thought prompt to make sure that they're getting factual answers. All right. There's also an ability for you to use Canvas through Google Gemini. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that right now, but Canvas is available in the Gemini app for all workspace for education users who are 13 plus. I don't have that account right now, so I can't demonstrate that to you, but take a look at that and see. There'll be more information in this deck that you could take a look at. All right. The other thing I want you to try is this. Google Gemini is very proud and have been sharing widely that they are able to have you use interactive quizzes. So what I'd like you to do is this. Go in and say, quiz me on, and then a topic, and it should start to give you a question and quiz you, right? Think about the amount of times that you can go in and have a student ask questions, test their knowledge, maybe take a review sheet and be asked about the questions that are on that review sheet. So what I want you to do is take a few minutes and try that. Let's go in and try to have Google quiz you on any topic, quiz you on tariffs, quiz you on World War II. Think of something that's coming up in your curriculum in the next week or two, or something that you're doing today, and ask Google Gemini to give you a quiz so you can see how effective you think that that quiz is. All right. Again, I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes to let you explore a little bit before we move on. And I'm going to be here. I'll just have the camera off. For those of you who just jumped in, right now we're giving people a chance to try the quiz features of Google Gemini to see how well they're working. So you can go into Google Gemini and ask a question like, quiz me on the effects of. So pick a topic in your class and ask it to make a quiz and go through the experience of being quizzed on that topic. We'll be back in about 2.5. All right. I know we probably use a little bit more time, but I want to give you a chance to start the process, and then hopefully you'll be able to go back and dive in a little bit further a little bit later on. All right. So we're going to go on to the next thing that I'm going to give you a challenge to do. Okay. And the next thing that I want you to take a look at is, did you know that just like Notebook LM, Google Gemini does audio overviews? So if you are a person who likes Google Notebook LM, and you are upset that you can't use it as a 13-year-old because it's 18 only, right? You have this option. Now, if you're 18 plus years old, you can use this to make a review. If you're a teacher and you have access, you can make an audio overview using this process. So what you'll do is go into Google Gemini, upload a document, upload a PDF, and then ask Google Gemini to create an audio overview. So here's what that looks like. I went in Google Gemini earlier and I uploaded this article. And this is an article about democracy, right? Democracy devouring itself. And I uploaded this article that was part of the research for the book that we wrote. And I asked it to create the audio overview. It takes 2 or 3 minutes. So I went ahead and did it in advance. But I went, uploaded it, and now I can ask the Gemini to read me or to read me the summary, and it happens in the way of a podcast. So listen to this for a brief second. So in a world where people listen to podcasts, and podcasts is one of the ways between YouTube and podcasts, that's a lot of the way that, did it not come across? Let me try it again. Let me go try it again. I'm going to stop sharing it and share just the tab really quick. And then come back and share the entire tab. Let's do. There we go. Sorry about that. Let me try one more time and let you kind of hear it.
Welcome to the deep dive.
Here now?
Today we're digging into something pretty challenging, the apparent rise of right-wing populism.
Yeah, it's a big topic.
And we're looking at Sean Rosenberg's work, which suggests it's not just, economics or immigration causing this.
Yeah.
He points to something deeper.
Exactly, a kind of structural issue within democracy itself.
Right. A mismatch, he calls it.
That's the idea. A mismatch between what modern democracy sort of asks of people, cognitively and emotionally, and what many people's capacities actually are.
Making democracy feel alienating.
All right, so that's just 30 seconds of what it looks like. But what you can do once you get that audio is you can download it, and then you can share it with the students if you want to. You can download this audio, and then once it's downloaded, you can take that and drag it into Google Drive, and then share that with the students. So if let me go here. Let me hit stop sharing. I'll share the screen again so you can see the process that I'm going to follow. All right. And then all I have to do is go here to Google Drive, go up to where I downloaded that audio, drag it over, and it can drop it right into Google Drive. Try one more time when that message is not there. All right. Let me go to new file upload. There we go. And then I can grab that and upload it into Google Drive very easily, and I can share that. So in terms of creating resources for the students to use, this is one way that we could create multiple modes of consuming that information. It's an article, but they can read and listen to an overview if they want to. If I'm a student, if I have students who have dyslexia, and I can give them the content without forcing them to move through their disability or to struggle with something that is a known challenge to them, that's going to give them a huge advantage in terms of learning or reviewing the material. So I'm going to show you one other thing before I give you some time to work in order to save us some time. So that's the audio overviews. You just have to upload an article and ask it to create that for you, right? But then the next thing I want to show you is this. We have something called GEMS, all right? So you can use the GEM Learning Coach to get personalized study guidance. So when you go in, you can go click on an area of GEMS within Google Gemini, or if you want, you can create your own. I saw earlier somebody struggled with that. But if you have a paid version, somebody had asked, is there a maximum file size? There, for a free version, there is. For a paid version, I believe that it's pretty generous, and I have not yet hit that amount. I have uploaded a video, and it wouldn't process it because that was massive, and I picked the wrong video. All right. So you'll get a tailored learning plan that covers subtopics and outlines and essential concepts between each area. So let's go take a look at what that looks like with GEMS. So if you're in Google Gemini and you look on the side, over here is GEMS. And GEMS are basically just like mini programs, mini discussions. And one of the ones that's there is Learning Coach. Okay. So if you go into GEMS, you'll see that this is the Learning Coach. There's also a brainstormer. There's a career guide, there's a coding partner, and you can create new ones. Like I copied the brainstormer, and you can go in and alter those. But if you go to the Learning Coach, you can ask it to quiz you on a certain topic, right? So they have examples like, how does photosynthesis work? I just finished reading Pride and Prejudice. So go in and go to the Learning Coach and ask it to teach you about a topic within your class, right? It'll help you to learn and practice, and it'll give you some guidance, and it already knows how to structure some of that learning. So the two things I want you to try right now are this. Either go in and create an audio overview, or go in and use those GEMS. Oh, by the way, I want to point out that the GEMS is also an 18+ feature, but you can help you to create materials to serve the students. I'm going to start that timer at 3 minutes and give you a chance to play with that again. Ready, set, go. Oh, right. There's our time. So I went in and I asked it to teach. I'm a social studies teacher. So what I do is I go look at the news, and everything in the top of the news is about tariffs. So if I was working with students, I could go in and ask them to explain the concept of tariffs. Asked me if I wanted a learning activity. I created a learning activity. It created a scenario and asked me to respond to that scenario. And then once I responded, it said, oh, you gave me part of the answer. Here's the part you didn't answer. Go back and respond. I responded again, and now it keeps going through and it keeps asking until I get each of the parts of that prompt answered correctly, meanwhile giving me feedback. So a pretty helpful tool if you have a student in a history class who's looking for some background knowledge on something that they don't understand, or if you're looking for background knowledge on technology or writing, you can go ahead and jump in and try that. All right, so those two features are pretty great, but now we're going to jump in and we're going to use Google Notebook LM. I'm going to ask you to rate yourselves again. How many of you, give me a plus if you've used Google Notebook LM, and give me a minus if you have not, so I can get a sense of how well people know it. Plus, a couple of minuses. Most of you are pluses. Lucia's got a lot of pluses. That means you like it a lot. Great. There's some new features that are in there that I'm really excited to show you. So even if you've used it quite a bit, I'm going to go in, show you how it works, give you a brief overview, and then give you some time to see some of the newer features in a demo. All right. So the first thing you need to know is that this is the breakdown. If you want to know the difference between Notebook LM and Notebook LM Plus, basically Notebook LM Plus is an upgraded version that you'd have to purchase. This is Notebook LM comes with the Education Plus account. So this is what you'll have for your students. You can upload PDFs and websites, documents, slides, URLs, and more. It's really cool to be able to put a URL in and ask it to analyze it. It'll give you one-click summaries, generate audio overviews, a lot of the things that are in Google Gemini, but it allows you to create a set of sources that you can use for it, okay? Oh, the other upgraded feature is once you have an upgraded Notebook LM, you can share that with other people. So you can take and create materials and then share it with others so that they can use it as well. So for like professional development, that could be really helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Notebook LM. Actually, I'm going to use my personal account because I don't have a paid version, and I want to show you just the standard version of that. So I'll go to Notebook LM. And when I go there, here you can see that I have a few notebooks that I've already built. Here's one about integrating AI. Here's two that I've done on civics. This one I created when I was working. All of the resources, all of the writing that I have done on civic education in the past 3 years, 4 years. So all of these are things that I have written. What I can then do is, if I want to, I can create an audio conversation, and it will take a second to load. But what's really cool now is that you could also go and mind map the materials that you have here. So watch. I can click on a mind map. It'll take a second to generate that. And then when I do that, I can open up all of the materials that I have been evaluated within civic education into topics. Here's the definition, and it breaks it down further. And then it's a little bit like Prezi when we used to have students do outlines there, but it can break down all of the topics into smaller topics. Here's 3 views of citizenship. I can break that down further, and you can just go into a visualization of the content that you have. So for students who have problems with language, if they want to structure things, this is a great way for them to structure their work. It's also really cool if they write an essay and they upload their essay and then ask the essay to be outlined using this. They'll get a sense of their structure and if it flows naturally, because if it doesn't, it's not going to make sense. So this feature that creates an outline is definitely something you should take a look at when you've uploaded some resources. So for those of you who are new, I want to go back and show you how this works, how to create a new notebook. So what you'll do is go into the notebook webpage here, click on Create New, and it's going to ask you to upload some sources. right? You can put in whatever materials you want. Let's go to the desktop here. I'm going to just take this one article. You could do it with many, but I'm just going to load one. It will upload this PDF about that article I told you about, and it will give you a brief summary. Then if I want to create an audio overview, I can. I can also ask questions. So I can say, what sources does the author reference in this article? And then it will go to the article and it will pull out or answer that question. So here are all of the sources referenced within the article that I've just now pulled out. And once I've done that, I can take this response that it's given me with all of the sources and I can click Save to Note. So now I have a saved note that has all of the sources. If I want an outline of this article, I can click Mind Map, and now it will add a new mind map over on this side that will generate. It'll take a few seconds like it does with audio. I can generate audio for the overview if I want to. And then there's some other features over here that you can easily use. You can use a study guide. Create a study guide for me. And now it will go through and it will create that study guide. Again, it takes a second. This is the breakdown of this article. It created an outline that quick. And then here is the study guide with a quiz. How many quiz questions? There's an answer key that explains each of the questions that it's asked. It also has essay format questions, and it pulls a glossary of terms. So simply by doing this, you as a teacher can pull out key terms, some possible questions, and it's going to help you structure your review or work on that particular article pretty effectively. It also works really well with stories. So if you upload a short story, I uploaded Ernest Hemingway, and I asked it to give me a breakdown, and it was very useful materials that you could use for that story. So what I'd like you to try and do here in a few minutes is jump in, take 2 or 3 minutes to upload one source that you use for your class, and explore how that source can be viewed as a mind map, created into audio, and create notes that go with it. Definitely try, and I'm going to shrink this down now, the study guide feature. And there's another one that says if you want a briefing doc, you can do that. And it will generate that briefing document that will give you the chance to overview this article. And the other feature that you should try out right now is the timeline. If you click on the timeline, while that's working, I'm going to show you the briefing document. And now it's a breakdown, section by section, a brief summary of what it talks about throughout the entire article. Right? And then here is the timeline. It goes through and it creates a timeline of everything mentioned within that article. And it also includes characters, political parties, politicians, and what year they were discussed. There's just so many ways to process that information. Tom and I have joked many times that AI showed up just after we submitted the manuscript for our book. And if we had had it before, how much easier research could be. Imagine doing doctoral research for your graduate degree using a tool like this to evaluate your sources. Imagine that you're using this tool to create and structure writing when you have a timeline like this, right? I could also, though, see this. Let's talk about some of the downsides. I could see a classroom discussion about an article taking place in a graduate class, and you haven't read the article, and you pull this up. So that could be a problem. So how can we use this to increase engagement and maximize its use so that we don't decrease engagement from students? All right, I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to dive in and explore Notebook LM, upload one resource, and from that one resource that you upload, give it a try and check out all of those features to see how you might use that in your planning or with your students. All right. Drop any questions into the chat if you can. Okay, Lucia, you had asked, can you publish a notebook LM chatbot so others can interact with it? If you have the upgraded version, you can share it. All right. But in terms of that, you can share this with someone and they can be able to get in. Let's do this. I've got this shareable. Let me drop this in and see to what extent you can use it. All right, that's the sharing link that I have given. Tell me what you can see when you look at it. I would love to be able to embed those features into a website. That'd be great. Imagine if you could embed the resources that you have. Thank you, Lucia. The minimum we owe people is to refer to them by the proper name, is it not?
Essentially, we want to create a chatbot that our faculty can engage with that has resources from our tech team to help them with tech help, but not be necessarily public facing to everyone and
Right.
not have them edit the resources that we upload, if that makes sense.
Yes. Can you click on that link for the notebook that I just put out there to see what you can see? Right? See, it'll say that you don't have access to view that notebook, right? I have to add people by name, but what you can do is you can go into Google Gemini while others are working. You can go into Gemini and you should be able to create chats there. I want to say that feature only exists in advanced, right? If you go into advanced, it's going to allow you to share, but it also has a share feature where you can share a certain answer. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Share your answer where it will share whatever the response is or what is generated. But can you create the bot with a ton of resources that are connected, that it's referencing from, that are specific to our school, that people can engage with?
That would work if you had an upgraded version of Gemini, or it would work if you had an upgraded version of Notebook LM.
Okay.
That would absolutely work, and you can embed it. And then what you would do, and that's what I created with, it's equivalent of what you would do with like a chat GPT, where you create a GPT and you just add those resources up there. So Gemini
And so then we could share the actual bot with the rest of the faculty.
And all you have to do is upload all your policies, all your updates.
Yes, exactly. Our tutorials, all the things. That's something Troy is working on.
And more importantly, a calendar and a timeline, because all of that would then have all the resources and the deadlines that are associated with all the things that you do.
Mhm.
And then they could get an answer 24 hours a day. I think that's also something that's coming. There was a school that was working on doing that with their handbook. So the rules for their handbook could be processed by a teacher or a parent just by asking questions. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you.
All right. About another 10, 15 seconds, then we're going to have to power down a little bit. Talked about all that. So according to this slide, and I saw this and I wanted to check, there's a way that when you have the Notebook LM Plus, you could share only in chat only mode, where they'll only be able to see the chat and not necessarily the resources you have added. So I think that's what you're looking for, is that you can leave a welcome note to invite people in, and then it will also have chat only mode in the viewer access, but it has to be in the upgraded version of Notebook LM. So if you had someone who was like your departmental administrator, your tech person, you could have one account, they could put that stuff out, and then you could share with everyone. There's also going to be features for analytics within Notebook LM, right? And a chance for you to look. We're at the end of our time now. So, but one of the things I want you to look for is that the features that you're seeing now can be integrated into regular Google Workspace. So if I go into my personal account and I go into a new document by hitting doc.new, in my personal account, which I'm in the beta version tester, you can go and there'll be features that allow you to do AI to look at a document. I can generate a document simply by creating it. They'll have a feature to check what I've written with AI on the side for a help me write feature, like create a short story about respecting feelings. And then it will very quickly within Google write that for you and drop it in, and then I can insert it or I can refine it. Basically, that's the features that are going to be within a lot of different tools. So I can easily, that quickly, can I write a story. It also works with slides, where if you go into Google Slides, let me try it with slides.new, it will have a feature that allows students to create images really quickly as well. Right, so I can enter create an image of an elephant. Right, and then just like that, it will create an image that I can drop into my slide presentation. I love this because my students don't spend a million hours online looking for an image. They just describe it, and within a few seconds, it's going to create one. I have seen that will sometimes take a little bit longer, but just like that, I can drag this over, and now I have an elephant that I just created from a prompt that I created. And then they have the rights to share all those tools. The last feature I really want to show you is this. I'm going to have to go to our plan. We're at our time, so I know that if you have to leave. But if I go to Google Classroom in my my demo account, one of the things I want to show you is that in Google Classroom, one of the features that you can go to is there's an ability for you to create resources. See, it's not going to be in here right now. The AI tools, it will give you an option to create resources where it is like Magic School, right? Where you have the ability to create a lesson plan or to create a quiz or to create an activity. And all of that will be right in the menu with Google Classroom once they have AI added to that. So that's the future of where AI is going. And I think that even those schools, it's kind of expensive sometimes to have those added, but what you can do is be aware of the fact that there are students. If I was a parent and I saw that these materials are available, I would 100% buy them for my kids. To have the ability to have it edit, to have the ability to evaluate documents and look at the material and simplify text. So even if we don't have these available with our school accounts, these are going to be available to students soon. And we need to be aware of that because the real challenge as we get to the end of this is engagement. If we use AI to help students to engage, to become more involved and to get more feedback, we're going to have a better situation. But if we have students and they learn to use these tools to disengage, to do less and to think less, then we know what that effect is like. But I have faith in us because teachers always win. Research shows that the rules for using cell phones came from teachers in their classrooms. We created that structure. And so we've done the same thing with calculators, and we've done the same thing with Cliff Notes and devices. And I have every bit of faith that we will go ahead and create social norms to use these tools in a way that's going to help students to learn more, to provide a more supportive environment, and to allow them to get more opportunities for feedback that are going to help them grow. So that being said, that's the end of our time right now. I dropped that deck into the chat so you can get at it. If you want to, there's other places you can look, and it'll give you demos and animations about using Gemini in email and slides and sheets, right? As well as like the side panel feature. Right. And if you want to, you can dig through. And here's an example of what I was showing you. This is what it's going to look like in Google Classroom. Underneath resources will be Gemini Education, and you'll have, just like Magic School or Alana AI, outline a lesson, generate a quiz, relevel a text, or craft a compelling hook for your lesson. And those are expected to only grow and become more like that. I think ultimately all AI is either going to become an LMS or it's going to be bought by an LMS and integrated, because we need these things all in one place. So I think that's the future that we have ahead of us. I can stay on and answer any questions. Thank you all for coming and for asking your questions and participating. Catherine dropped the slides in there again, of course. And I'm more than willing to take your questions. You can always email me at sean@edtechteacher.org. I spend my first hour of the day responding to teachers all across the country for things that they're working on. All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing right now. In a world where there is so much demand for our attention, I always appreciate when people willingly give theirs. I hope you gain something that'll help your kids. You guys have a great day. Bye, everyone. You're very welcome. And Gail dropped the form in there to evaluate. So if you want to fill out that form, that would also be super, super helpful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dan. You're very welcome, Jennifer. All right.
You could
So,
turn off the recording, Sean.
yep.